Hey, all, welcome to my channel. Thank you for all those who have subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you like my content, like my video, like my channel, please subscribe. Um, so there was news that came out a couple of days ago, or yeah, few days ago, since the break, during the break, that Lewis had re-signed for another 2 years with Mercedes. I mean, reality was, even though he was going to be a free agent after this year, in reality, he was going to re-sign with Mercedes. The real question is this: should he have re-signed? That's the real question. Should he have re-signed with Mercedes? Because of him and Russell a little bit, they're on track. If barring any not defeats, not defeats, but barring any non non finishes, as well as falling lower than fourth for either one of the drivers, they should be able to get this. They should be able to get second in the constructors' cup. I mean, at least they're in contention for the second place. It's between them and Aston Martin, of course. But the thing is again, the fact is like Hamilton re-signed with Mercedes. Question is, can Mercedes get back to their former glory years 2 or 3 years ago? And the question comes down to is, does Hamilton have that time to wait to get that eighth championship and potentially ninth championship? Because the thing is, let's be honest. I mean, with Max Verstappen, the dude's like on track of the way he's winning and the way Red Bull is adjusting very quickly to all these rule changes. That they should be able to. He should be able to match, if not beat out, both Schumacher and Hamilton's record for total championship wins. Now, total wins overall, it might take a while for Verstappen, unless maybe 4 or 5. Actually, you know what? He could theoretically beat out also the 108 wins that Hamilton has as well too. Total number of Grand Prix wins. So the again, it comes down to this, because I think, and I've said in my earlier videos, basically, it seems like Toto Wolff and the rest of the team has not adjusted to the rule changes. It's taken them 2 to 3 years, and yeah, they've been able to get close to places, but the reality is it's only by pure luck, I think, more than anything else, and a little bit of strategy as well too, because their engine has not, well, the engine as well as the whole car itself has not been able to essentially max out the performance that they were able to have achieved, from 2012 to all the way to 2020 practically, and even 2021 a little bit for that. Because the thing is I mean, quite honestly, they haven't really finished in the top two per se, whereas at least Aston Martin has been with Alonso. Now, that could be also the fact that Alonso's a really good driver, but at the same time, you got to wonder, if Hamilton was in those cars, in the Aston Martin cars, would he be in the top two? Would he be in contention for the championship, honestly? And I would say, yeah, in my opinion, he would be in the contention if he was in the Aston Martin cars. So the fact is like, he must have some serious faith in Mercedes. I mean, he has been the face of Mercedes since 2012, basically. And Russell being his quote unquote sidekick. I don't, even though Russell doesn't believe he's going to be the sidekick, he thinks he's the number one as well too. But Russell has shown that he has some cases of brilliance every now and then, but if the car is well enough for him. Honestly, we're seeing the brilliance of Alex Albon now. The fact that he's in a Williams car and he's maximizing the performance out of that, I think if he was in the Mercedes car and or even the Aston Martin car for that matter, I think he'd probably be in the top 3, 4 for sure overall in the championship. But probably podiuming him out quite a few times as well too. But in any case, that's a different story. In this situation, we're talking about Lewis Hamilton and signing with Mercedes. Is it the right choice? I will say this. I will say it's not. I say if I was Lewis Hamilton and you wanted that eighth and potential ninth championship, I was about to say World Cup, sorry. But yeah, ninth championship. And forgetting about the Constructors' Cup a little bit. He probably Ferrari is nowhere near where they're at, so I think he had no choice not to go with Ferrari because it made absolute sense not to go with Ferrari. I mean, you have the allure of Ferrari, the mystique of Ferrari, but in reality, even going there, he would probably be even farther below than where Mercedes is at. The only two other places I could think of that he could probably show some signs of gaining, his, showing signs of basically him gaining the advantages over everyone else, and particularly Red Bull, would probably be Aston Martin. But the thing is, you have Alonso there, and you have Lance Stroll. Question is, will Lance Stroll be there next year? Of course, unfortunately, in this case, it is. If I'm Lawrence Stroll, if I could have lured Hamilton away into the Aston Martin, a 1-2 team between the two, you probably would have gone for the Constructors' Cup at that point as well, too, quite honestly, for next year. Because, put it bluntly, it seems like Aston Martin has adjusted very quickly to the changes and rule changes, basically. And now the question is like, can Mercedes do that? And it looks like, again, Toto Wolff, not to knock him, but him and his team have not been able to essentially adjust to these changes. And as more and more, honestly, I think when Ferrari gets better as well too, they're probably going to surpass them as well too. Right now, I think the reason why Mercedes isn't I don't want to say a lock for number 2, but definitely looking like they could get the number 2 in the Constructors' Cup is only because the fact is because of Hamilton and how the way he drives. I think he's almost getting the maximal or optimal, not maximal, but optimal performance out of the cars. Can he maximize the performance of the cars? I don't think so, because it's one of those things where they try to listen to him, but I think they try to listen to what needs to be done, but probably hold back a little bit. I think there's two factors that plays into this. There's one, Mercedes not being able to adjust, and two, the fact that I think Lauder basically dying. I think he had a lot of input into the mechanics of the car, because he was really well. I don't want to say mechanic, but designer for cars as well too. Even though he was a great driver, I think he knew what needed to be the car to get the optimal performance or maximize the driver's usage out of it. And I think with that, that's why, because both Hamilton as well as Rosberg and as well as Bottas were able to always finish 1-2 basically, because the fact is I think Lauda was able to recognize their drivers, recognize their skills, and tell the designers as well as the mechanics that this is what you got to do for the car for them. I don't think they have anyone for that, unfortunately, and that's the problem. I mean, Lewis will probably say, I need it for this, but they got to also account for Russell as well too, and I think they're trying to account for both of them, but the problem is between the two of them, you can't, because they're both different drivers, unfortunately. That's why I believe next year, I think we'll see, depending how it goes, if Papa Lawrence can, maybe, I don't want to say retire, I don't want to say fire, but more maybe push Junior over to basically tennis or whatever it is. He could probably get a better driver in there to complement Alonso. But the thing is, Alonso being 40-ish, 41 right now, I think he maybe has one or two more years left in him before he probably have to leave. Because honestly, at least it has that physical. He's able to do that physical regime that he does for training. I don't think he's going to be able to last that long. Similarly, with Lewis himself as well too. I mean, he's got that drive. I think the reason why he's got the drive is because he wants that 8th championship. He wants to beat out Schumacher. But I think the fact that he sees the way Max is driving and the way Red Bull is, honestly, if Vettel had stayed with Red Bull for another 2 to 3 more years, rather than having 5 championships or 4 championships, he probably would have had 6 by now, maybe 7. He might have tied with Schumacher for that matter as well too, had he stuck with Red Bull. But because he left and went to Ferrari, and he never knew how to adjust for the hybrid, for the hybrid cars, or the engine changes themselves. That's where you saw what he was basically. Whereas Hamilton, you see how good of a driver he is, and it's only because of him that Mercedes is in contention for the second spot in the Constructors' Cup. So I don't want to say Hamilton's wasting away his skills sticking with Mercedes, but it's more of a case where, like, how long does he want to last for? Because, like, can he do this for another 4 more years? If he can do that, then yeah, okay, fine. Because, like, maybe in another year to 2 years, maybe Mercedes can come back and redesign the car to the point where, like, it can contend and compete with the Red Bulls and the Ferraris for that matter, and the Aston Martins for that matter as well too. Sorry, or the Aston Martin and the Red Bulls. The only thing is, you can only advance so much before your opponent advances as well too. Because, like, let's put it this way: Red Bull is always constantly changing. They're always advancing, and if Hamilton had the shot to go to Red Bull, I think he would have. He could have, but the problem is Sergio is so good enough that he is that complement to Max, and Max is such a great driver that for Red Bull's perspective, we don't need to pay that much money because we got one really excellent driver and one really good driver that to the point where, like, we'll win another couple more constructors down the line, as well as potentially definitely one more for this year, but definitely 2 more down the line as well. I mean, it seems like that's what always happens, almost like on a cyclical basis, like 6 to 7 years before some rule change comes on point, because I think the F1 doesn't want all these constructors to always be just one team, 1 to 2 teams, basically. Now, that's not to say that Russell also was also signed for 2025 as well too. Was that a good move for Mercedes or a good move for Russell? From Russell's perspective, yes. From Mercedes' perspective, yeah, because honestly, I don't think Mercedes has anyone else that they can get to replace Russell outside of Alex Albon. But the thing is, I don't think they want to take that risk with Alex or any other new driver for that matter. Sorry. I mean, Gasly would actually make sense too, but I don't think that's happening as well. But in any case, this is a case where I think Hamilton may have made the wrong choice. I mean, I understand the loyalty part of things, and I understand that he wants to create that legacy with Mercedes, with him associated, him associated with Mercedes, that he creates that legacy. The way Schumacher left that legacy with Ferrari, that I think he wants that by doing this with Mercedes and by beating Schumacher and creating a couple more championships and a couple more grand, wins. He'll create that legacy that's always associated with Mercedes. Because, like, when you say Mercedes, hey, to the Lord Mercedes, you go back to the person, to that driver, and in this case, it would be Lewis Hamilton. Whereas similarly with McLaren, it's always associated to Senna, right? If McLaren was staying around, yeah, potentially Hamilton could have gotten that and overtaken Senna, but at the same time, you still have Senna associated to it, just like you have, I forgot the guy's name for Renault, the French dude. I'm gonna have to do a quick Google quick search, basically. I was gonna say Google, but actually I'm doing Bing for this one. Renault F1 driver most championship. Oh, come on, it's not listening in it. I hate this one that doesn't do that. Let's see. Niki Lauda, of course, is always associated with Ferraris well too, but of course, with the fact that Schumacher came over him, that's why. Piquet was always noticed, with Ford. Lauda has been with McLaren, but he's been Prost. That's it. Sorry, Prost being associated with Renault, basically. The engine, of course, the chassis being under Williams, but You always have Prost with it. And then, Fernando Alonso with Renault for a bit. And then Hamilton with McLaren. Button with Braun and Mercedes. Vettel with Red Bull. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, with Red Bull. But yeah, basically Prost with under Renault, even though it's under the body was under Williams, basically. But Prost is well known with Renault a little bit more. Let's be honest with that. But again, Senna is mostly associated with McLaren. Similarly to Niki Lauda. I mean, like Lauda's associated to Ferrari as well too. But when you say Ferrari, you automatically go to Schumacher more than anyone else. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the whole point basically in this situation. It's more of a case where like it might have been a mistake. I don't want to say mistake, but I think maybe it was a little bit of bad judgment on his part. But I could see where Hamilton's coming from. Basically, it's not only the loyalty factor. I don't think it's a loyalty factor. I think it's an ego factor. I think he wants that to be associated. Where when you say Mercedes, it's automatically his name. That's why whenever you say Mercedes, his name is the only one that you remember, basically. Just like when you say Ferrari, you pretty much remember mostly Schumacher. You barely remember Lauda. I mean, unless you're a true aficionado, you remember Lauda. Same thing with McLaren. When you say McLaren, it's automatically Senna at that point. So that's why I think, with Hamilton, I think if he can gain that one more championship, when you say Mercedes, then it becomes associated to him, because I think he's afraid of the fact is like someone else will come in with Mercedes, similar like to what you have with another Max coming in with a Mercedes, building out with Mercedes and winning like 10 straight championships. That person's going to be associated when you say the name, associated with the name of Mercedes at that point. So I think by doing this, he becomes the one that can be associated, but that might be for a while anyways. But in this situation, by doing that, it makes sense for him, like from that perspective. But from a realistic aspect, it doesn't make sense for him if he wants that 8th and 9th championship. Because if he does get if he does want that 8th and 9th, of course, because he's going to need those two, and probably 10th most likely if he's going to try to go for that. If he has 9th, is not to be with Mercedes. He probably would have been better going off to, in this case, rotating around with, basically going into Aston Martin and then potentially Red Bull as well, too, or vice versa, and then like rotating between the two. He would have gotten that 8th and 9th. And most likely 10th championship as well too. And then it would have been much more difficult for Max to gain that momentum. Because honestly, I think if you put Max versus Lewis in the same car, Lewis comes out by far ahead of him in the long run. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts and comments. Do you think this free agent signing by Lewis to sign with Mercedes for another 2 more years was the right move for him? Was that the right choice? Was it the right choice for Mercedes to retain Hamilton at that point as well too? I honestly think that is the right choice for Mercedes, because they need star power in this situation, and the fact is Hamilton's the one that was keeping him in the running for contention of the number 2 spot in the constructors. But was it the right move for Hamilton? Or should Hamilton have played it off and tried maybe to see if he can move over to Aston Martin? But with that, I'll leave it at that. Again, I thank you for those that have subscribed, and again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you like my channel, like my video, like my content, and with that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, and of course, unrehearsed. Until next time.